Alright, what's up guys, and welcome to Gaming History 101's second part to the Franken console. This one is going to be the Sega CD. In the first video we showed you the Genesis. Here's the Sega CD. Now this is the Sega CD 2. You'll notice it because it latches onto the side of the Genesis as opposed to the Sega CD 1, which was underneath it, and it's also a top-loading CD tray. Basically, this is, will hook up to a Sega Genesis 1 or 2. If you've got it, there is a metal plate that was supposed to offer some sort of shielding and this and that, but it really just works with these notches here to kind of lock the console into place. And what you would do is you expose the expansion chip along with attaching this plate, and you just kind of lay it on top, and you'll feel it kind of go into the grooves, and it kind of lines up with the chip, but then you got to give it a good squish. So this is going to get a little blurry for a second while I do so, and you'll kind of hear the click. Alright, now that it's together, you can see it's all flush and locked up. Now the consoles really kind of move as one. They're firmly together. Alright, now, if you have the Genesis 1, there was a little expansion port that goes over here, which kind of like gave it the extra room because the Genesis 1 is wider. But if you don't have that, don't worry about it. Now, looking at the back, okay. There's a couple of ports here. You hook up your Genesis normally as you would with the AV and the AC power. Now over here there was a mixing cable which was required for the Genesis 1 as well as stereo outs. The reason these are on here when you have a Genesis 1 is because it wasn't in stereo, so this adapted it to be in stereo. On the plus side with the Genesis 2, it is in stereo, so if you just hook up the regular AVs, it'll do stereo no problem, and you can disregard this mixing cable port and the stereo outs. Then there's just the AC power supply. Now, from the first video I told you the AC power supply for the Genesis 2 is a 10 volt 850 milliamp or 0.85 amp power supply. This has a different power supply. This one is a 9 volt 1.2 amp power supply. So when you're looking for it, make sure you look for the right one. This is what it looks like. But again, the specs are all that really matters. Alright, you're going to need two things with your Sega CD. Well, you're going to need one thing, and I would suggest the second one. The first one, boom, is a Sega CD game. This is Corpse Killer. Much like the Arnold Palmer and various other games in some of these videos, this is part of the contest. You will win Corpse Killer as part of the contest. Aside from the art on the front of it, and it does say Sega CD, there was a version of Corpse Killer that was a 32X CD, and it would say 32X CD. It's just a standard CD in every way, shape, and form. The other thing you'll need, there is an internal memory built into this thing because obviously it can't save to any ports. This internal memory is very small. It holds basically like 2 game saves, and in some cases like Snatcher, just 1 game save, which is why you may want to pick up the very expensive, pretty rare, but very useful, boom, the Sega CD backup RAM cart. This basically adds 25,000 blocks, so to speak, and there's about 2,500 blocks on the console. It basically lets you save tons of games. I got about 20 saves on this thing, and it works great. The only thing that's annoying about it is you do have to transfer the saves back and forth. It will only read the saves that are actually built into the Sega CD. So you basically just move everything over to here, and then you move it over before you start up the game. And it just plugged into the console port. Now, the reason it did that was because if there was any games in your Genesis when you turn this on, the Sega CD wouldn't work. If there were no games in there, the Sega CD would just start up. The only exception is this RAM card. Have this in here. You can move memories back and forth, kind of like a memory card, and it will not prevent the Sega CD from powering up. The Sega CD will power up as if there is no cartridge in the slot. Alright, this concludes part 2 of Franken Console. Get ready for part 3 where we throw the 32X in the mix, a bunch of cables, and try to get this whole thing together. We'll be right back with Franken Console part 3.